Today, I will be sharing the 1922 original of the classic Nosferatu. Jonathan Harker was a man of quiet ambition and unwavering practicality. A solicitor by trade, he sought to build a secure future with his beloved fiancée, Ellen, a woman whose beauty was rivaled only by her kindness. Her laughter was soft, like the chime of distant bells, and her eyes held a light that made the world seem less cruel. She waited for him in their hometown of Wisborg, hopeful and devoted. Ellen was known among the townsfolk for her charitable heart and gentle spirit. She spent her days tending to the sick and comforting the mourning, though unease had begun to settle over Wisborg. Strange omens whispered through the air, and the town's once bustling streets grew quieter. Knock, Jonathan's employer, was a wiry, hollow-cheeked man whose gaunt face never seemed to blink enough. He spoke in riddles and muttered to himself when he thought no one was listening. He sent Jonathan on the journey to Transylvania, insisting he finalize the sale of an old, forsaken estate to Count Orlok, a mysterious foreign noble. "You must go," Knock urged, his eyes flickering with manic fervor. "The Count is eager to come to Wisborg. A great man. A powerful man." Jonathan saw the unease in Ellen's eyes when he kissed her goodbye. He promised to return soon. The moon hung low, swollen, and sickly pale, over the jagged peaks of the Carpathians. Jonathan Harker's carriage jostled and lurched along the uneven, muddy path, each wheel's grown a whisper of protest against the road that led only deeper into the mountain's grasp. The locals had warned him. Their voices, hoarse and fearful, begged him not to go. But duty bound him to the reclusive Count Orlok's estate. His employer, the obsessive and pallid Knock, insisted on securing Orlok's purchase of a property in Wisborg. Harker ignored the villagers' frantic superstitions of a demon in the castle. He was a man of reason. The carriage halted abruptly. The driver refused to go further. "You must walk now, or Harker," the man muttered, eyes darting nervously to the encroaching forest. "The Count, he waits." Jonathan took his bag and stepped onto the mist-drenched path, watching the driver flee. The wind whispered through the gnarled trees, a sound like dry fingers scratching against tombstone marble. He walked for what felt like hours until the silhouette of the castle rose from the darkness, a blackened skeleton against the moonlit sky. The great wooden door groaned open on its own. He entered. Inside, the air was stale and cold, the scent of damp stone and rotting wood thick in his throat. A tall figure emerged from the shadows. Count Orlok. His form was grotesque, gaunt and hunched, with talon-like fingers and a head too smooth, too elongated. His eyes burned from hollow sockets. "You have come," Orlok's voice rasped, dry as old parchment. "Welcome." Jonathan forced a smile, though his heart hammered. The Count's gaze pinned him like an insect. His host's hospitality was strange, yet polite. Still, Jonathan could not shake the weight of unease settling on his shoulders. That night, Harker woke in his chamber, frozen. The moonlight through the warped window revealed Orlok standing by his bed. He wasn't breathing. His eyes glinted like two drops of oil. Harker couldn't move. He watched, paralyzed, as the Count leaned in, impossibly slow, his shadow stretching like a claw across the wall. He woke at dawn, feverish and trembling, two red marks on his throat. Days blurred. Jonathan grew weaker, while Orlok seemed to grow stronger. The Count took great interest in the picture of Jonathan's fiancée, Ellen, his bony finger tracing her face. "Your wife, she has a lovely neck," Orlok murmured. A terrible understanding gripped Jonathan. He had to escape. But the castle shifted. Corridors twisted, spirals led nowhere. He ran endlessly through cold, narrow stone passages that seemed to breathe around him. The windows were bricked up. The doors slammed shut just before he reached them. The castle wasn't merely a prison, it was alive. Meanwhile, back in Wisborg, Ellen was plagued by nightmares. She saw Jonathan, pale and broken, trapped in Orlok's shadow. She woke screaming, night after night, and grew distant, frail. Knock, her fiancé's employer, had grown wild and deranged, babbling to unseen masters. The master comes. He brings the plague. Death is his bride. Knock shrieked from his asylum cell, eyes rolling. Orlok set sail for Wisborg. The ship, a ghostly silhouette, emerged from the mist, its sails torn and ragged. The crew vanished one by one, leaving only the captain, lashed to the wheel, his eyes glassy with terror. Orlok rose from the hold, a monstrous silhouette in the fog. Rats spilled onto the dock when the ship arrived, black and writhing. The plague followed. Jonathan, barely alive, escaped the castle at last and made his way back to Wisborg. Ellen's heart shattered at the sight of him, weak and hollow-eyed. He spoke of Orlok, of shadows that moved without bodies, of the Count's unnatural hunger. Ellen knew what had to be done. The book Jonathan brought from the castle spoke of the vampire's only weakness, a woman pure of heart, willing to sacrifice herself. As the town died around them, Ellen lured Orlok to her room. Her voice trembled, but she called to him. "Come to me. I am waiting." The Count appeared, his figure blotting out the moonlight. He moved toward her, slow and deliberate, his eyes burning with need. She let him take her in his arms, let him lean closer, closer. Jonathan, weak but determined, watched in helpless horror from the doorway. Orlok's teeth grazed Ellen's throat, and she screamed, but it wasn't pain. It was fury.